Okay, good afternoon 1F. Welcome to History Lesson 101. Today we are going to look at your textbook, page 104. So can you turn to page 104? We are going to look at migration and the reasons why the early immigrants came to Singapore. Now, we're going to walk through together with you on why people came. What are the push factors that led to them coming here? Okay, so first you must understand what is migration. This word migration. Okay, migration is basically the movements of people from one country to another. Okay, from one place to another place over a long distance, over centuries, and over different places. When they move there, the result is interaction with the locals, and secondly, cultural exchange. These are the two main things that will happen when people move to a different country. So we are going to look at why our early ancestors came over to Singapore. Before we look into the push factors proper, can you turn to page 106? You will see what is called the Industrial Revolution. This was a period in time in history whereby things started moving very fast, whereby ideas started coming up in people's mind. This was the era in which you had people who invented the light bulb, people who invented gravity, people who invented electricity, and so on and so forth. So Albert Einstein was here. Albert Einstein was not here, but Thomas Edison was here, and some other people, the early thinkers of society. So the main thing that they invented that led people to move from place to place is the ships. Okay, so in the past they used this kind of ships to travel around, but because of this new thinking, they invented what we call steamships. Okay, the early steamships. So with steamships, people could travel faster and in a shorter period of time. Okay, then in the next page, on page 107, you will see what we call the slave trade. This basically speaks of why people moved around. Okay, last time the slaves, it was legal to actually have slaves and to move slaves around, but it was abolished in the 18th and early 19th century. So as a result, because slaves actually work for free, right? So when you abolish the slave trade, when you break the chains, free from the slaves, you break it, what will happen? You will not have people who are working for you for free anymore, right? If you think you still can get people to work for you for free, think again. So you can't. So what happened? Because of this, all these free slaves could go home. So what will happen to their jobs? Basically, their jobs are now vacant and people needed to find cheap labor. Companies, businesses still needed to fill the void that was broken by the slaves. So they need to find cheap labor, and hence this is why people started moving. So people moved because of this. Okay, simple. Now we move to the next point, the Suez Canal. So if you turn to page 108, you will see the canal. Basically, in the past people traveled around Africa, but now because of this new canal at the Suez area near the Mediterranean Sea, okay, you will see that travel route has shortened. So with a shortening of the travel route, people could move easily. And one place they can move easily is of course to Singapore. Okay, so now we're going to look into the push factors proper. Okay, but first you must understand what exactly is push. Okay, push basically means that you are pushing people out of the country, pushing people away from the country, from home basically. So why do people want to leave home? Circumstances must have been very bad for them to want to leave home, am I right? So if you look at the first page of your textbook in the push factors, okay, can you highlight with me poor living conditions in one's homeland are one of the reasons why people left. So the first reason we're looking at is this: poverty and starvation. Okay, I hope you can see poverty and starvation. So refer to your textbook and follow along. So many people left their homeland because of poor living conditions. Hunger, okay, highlight according, hunger in their homeland. Not enough money to earn, not enough money to feed their families. So what is the result? The result is they want to find a better life elsewhere. So this is what we call poverty and starvation, and this is what we call a push factor, okay, that let people out. So one of the reasons why there's poverty and starvation is because of overpopulation. So highlight along, and natural disasters. And this is the two things we're going to look further upon in the next few pages of your textbook. Simple. So if we go on to Java, okay, the main focus here is this cartoon. So in the first panel of the cartoon, you can see villagers producing crops for the Dutch. Okay, highlight according to what I have highlighted. Villagers producing crops for the Dutch. That means that they don't have freedom. They are lacking freedom. Okay, your crops, instead of planting crops for yourself, you have to plant crops for the Dutch. So villagers have to set aside 20% of their fields to grow crops for the Dutch to work in these plantations. So do you think they'll be hungry? Yes, because there's no food for the locals, or there's limited food for the locals. Most of the food actually went to Dutch masters. Okay, so here, what can you see? This guy here, he looks very skinny, right? He looks malnourished because the Dutch have been profiting from everything that all the hard work on their farming has gone to the profiteering of the Dutch. Okay, the Dutch profit enormously. So then there's no food for the locals and there's barely enough for everyone. So when you have a case whereby there is a lack of food in a country or lack of food in a place, we call it a natural disaster. And this disaster is called famines. Okay, disasters are epidemics, and one such epidemic because of lack of food is famines. Why famine? Because you have to grow sugarcane and indigo for the Dutch to trade to earn money. So the Dutch did not think much of the locals. They only think about earning money. So the poor locals were left to starve. So a famine arose. Okay, this system of giving crops to the Dutch instead of producing food for local people is called the cultivation system. Okay, so they grew sugarcane and indigo instead of rice, which leads to famine epidemics in the 1840s and 50s. So what do people want now? They have to run away, correct? Okay, so continuing on, you will see that it's because people don't have enough food. The Dutch mistreated them. Dutch masters here, this man Okay, mistreated the locals. So the poor locals have not enough food, hence they are driven out of their homeland to look for places where there's food, where they can grow crops, where they do not have to listen to the Dutch people. So that is why they left for Singapore. And this is one of the reasons why people came to Singapore to work. Okay, this picture here, as you can see, is a very sad story. All these workers here, they look like they are a lower class. And who is the higher class people? This gentleman standing here. So how would you feel if you were one of these people, right? Working 24 hours, 12 hours, hard work, while these people, the Dutch, earn all your money. You won't be happy, correct? So that's why people were pushed out. Okay, you are pushed out, and hence they left for Singapore. So this is one of the case studies. Okay, next case study is in China. Okay, look at this picture here. From this picture, I can really tell that people's life were not that good. Okay, look at their clothes. Their clothes look torn, tattered. They look like they haven't changed clothes for days. Look at this man's expression. He looks sad, right? But what can you notice here? This lady here, she is a family. She has a family. And how many kids do you think she has? Who are her kids if you look closely? Okay, I'm going to number it for you. So, 1 kid here, correct? 2 kids here, 3 kids here, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This lady has 8 kids. What does it speak of? Why do you think they have so many kids? Why? Farming. In the past, people believed that the more kids you have, the more hands you have to work. Okay? But what happens is that if everybody thinks this way, then there will be too many people. And that is called overpopulation. So this is what China faced in the past. The population doubled. Can you highlight along? The population nearly doubled. So when you double, you don't have the farmland to sustain the population, because people needed farmland to grow crops. Am I right? Okay, to grow their crops, their beautiful crops, whether they want to grow carrots, right, or basically just grow wheat for rice. So when you have many people fighting for a single piece of land, of course you're not going to have enough food. Okay, so this is the problem that they face. So not only that, the people who came are from Fujian. So that's why you have the Hokkien people in Singapore, right? Fujian and Guangdong, the Hokkien and the Cantonese. Why are they affected the most? You have to look at their farmland. Okay, they live in mountain areas, right? Example, so mountain areas like this. Okay, if they live in mountain areas, do you think they have farmland? No, right? To plant crops in the mountain, you actually need to cut the mountain like this so that you can have a flat land. Only when flat land, then you can grow crops. Correct? So this is tedious work. This is tedious work, and it can lead to very little cropland. So because these people live in mountain area, and they are having more and more children, and they're having overpopulation, there's no food, right? You can't grow crops. You have no land for growing crops. So it's a serious thing. People are suffering. That's why the Chinese suffered. That's why they decided enough is enough. We are not going to stay here anymore. We're going to shift. So that is when they started shifting. Okay? So that is for Chinese overpopulation. Now, I'm going to skip this source for now, okay? Now, if you look at unrest and instability. Okay, this picture here is symbolizing the Java War. There was a war fought in Java. Java is actually in Indonesia. Okay, so the Java War. Now, if you analyze this picture, who is fighting against whom? Okay, clearly, inside here it says the Dutch troops. So these men here are actually the Dutch troops. Okay, these men here are the Dutch troops. How do they look like in comparison to these people? Okay, they look better off. They look more highly skilled. They look like they have more organization. Of course, they won the war. But what's important is that in a war, there's going to be killings, right? There's killings. There's suffering. There's violence. There's suffering. So, of course, things are not going to look good, right? You're not going to have enough food to eat if there's killings, there's suffering, there's violence. So, hence, this is one of the reasons why people had no choice. They had to leave. Okay, they left. They had to leave their homeland. Okay, so how many people were affected? 2 million. 2 million souls affected by this war. 200,000 people died. A quarter of the land damaged. No food to eat. And living in fear, living in constant fear of death. So what do? We leave to search for better life elsewhere. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why people are pushed out. Experience of hatred, experience of war, of bloodshed. Okay, bloodshed. That's why people have no choice but to leave. Okay, so next thing, China. Now China is a bit complicated. For China's case, in terms of wars and rebellions, there's many. The first we're going to look at is rebellions. Rebellions, what is rebellions? Rebellions basically means going against the government. When people are unhappy, right? You are unhappy with the government. How do you show your unhappiness? By revolting, right? So they have a rebellion against the government. They go against the government. So, two types of rebellion that happen in China is the Taiping Rebellion and the Boxer Rebellion. So, Taiping Rebellion and Boxer Rebellion. So, you can read more about it here. Taiping started from this guy, Hong Qiuquan. He claimed he's the younger brother of Jesus Christ, chosen by God to establish a heavenly kingdom to replace the Qing dynasty. So, what is the dynasty they're unhappy with? Okay, so the Taiping Rebellion and the Boxing Rebellion, both against the Qing dynasty. So there you have rebellion. Okay, next, clan wars. So this picture here shows actually the Hakka people. Okay, from the Hakka province. So who are the clans that are fighting? The clans are the Cantonese and the Hakkas. Okay, please highlight along with me. So these two groups of people with different surnames, different descent from the same dialect group fighting out. So when clans fight together, that's when you have clan wars. Okay, quite straightforward. So we'll skip this first. Then of course we have civil war. So what do I mean by civil war? It means that when groups in China start fighting against one another, similar to clan wars but in a later part. So in 1911, after the fall of the Qing dynasty, we have the period of warlordism, 1916 to 1927. That is when there are different groups of people who have gathered different armies together, and then we have warlordism. Okay, this was followed by the civil war, because when the dynasty falls, the king has fallen, the emperor has fallen, people are fighting to unite China again. People are fighting to have control over your united China. So who are the people who want power? They are the Kuomintang, the people who are fighting for nationalism, and the communists. So these two groups. Okay, you just need to know that these are the two groups that are essentially fighting for control over China after the fall of the king. Okay, so once the king falls, different groups are coming together. Different groups come together to claim the right to rule the country. Yes, so in a war, of course, there's violence, there's death, there's loss of land, loss of property, loss of blood. People are going to be unhappy. Okay? So when they're unhappy, that's when they're going to leave. They have enough, sick and tired of the clan wars, of the civil war, of the rebellions. Another thing is called conscription, so please highlight along. When you have conscription, that means that people have to go to serve the army. Right? You will become a soldier. But in this case, not like Singapore army, this when you become a soldier, you are immediately sent out into the battlefield. Okay, to fight immediately. If you are in front of the battlefield, there's a high chance you will die. So people do not want to die. So hence they sneaked out and left the country, or they just left the country to escape all this war, all this bloodshed, all this death, all this violence. So that is why people left. So this is one of the push factors. Okay? So in India it's the same thing. When you have war, as in this picture, you will see bloodshed, you will see death. Right? Imagine you are this man. This guy is actually holding the spear. So of course he's going to have a very severe injury. But other than that, if you see this guy has a gun being pointed right at this guy, right? What's going to happen to him? He's going to die, obviously, and he's going to have a horrible death. So people are rebelling. People are not happy with one another. In this case, who are they unhappy with? The Indians are unhappy against the British. So these folk here are called the British. The British first went to India and they used the locals to do their work. So in a sense, they are like slaves to the British. So of course these Indians won't be unhappy. They will be unhappy and they'll rebel. So here you can see this guy's face. Why do you think they are driven so much so that they want to fight the British back? Okay. So you can see here the Indian rulers or the Indians actually resented the British rule. So hence they staged rebellion against the British. Okay, most of them are sepoys. That means that they actually work for the British, but they are unhappy over their lives, over how the British are mistreating them. So of course they're going to rebel, right? What do they face? They face hardship. They face suffering. So of course rebellion comes after that. So hence, because of this rebellion, people left. Not only that, okay, the people who survived as punishment, where the British didn't want all these troublemakers to stay in India. So they are forced to leave their homeland as convict labor. What is convict labor? These are the convict laborers. Okay, they don't look happy at all, right? You're forced to leave your homeland, your home, to go to a foreign country. Okay, to go to a foreign country to work. And okay, so if you look at the next page of your book, you will see the hamburger framework. So basically this is how you write your essay. You have your point. After you write your main point, your point will be either poverty, starvation, or unrest, instability. Okay, after that you will have your elaboration, which means that you just elaborate more on this point. What is poverty, starvation? Where is it? And what does it lead to? Okay, poverty and starvation, the main reasons are, so you will write overpopulation is one you can choose, or the other one you can choose is natural disasters. So this is your elaboration. After that, the next one is giving examples. So there's many countries, so at least give two. Try and give two countries. This is called your evidence. So if you write overpopulation, where is it? Okay, China, Java. These are some of the places where this happened. So because of this evidence, you must also elaborate again. So what if you find this evidence here in China and Java? Okay, what exactly pushed them to leave? So you must write about the conditions, lack of food, epidemic, the famine, okay, everything, every information must be written down in the evidence. So again, and then link back means you just answer the question again and say that hence this is the reason why people left Singapore. Okay.